Hello, this is Allie with the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today we have episode 30 of Real Talk for Lightworkers, which is awesome. And yay, we made it to 30. And I think we're probably just going to keep going. And I don't know, should I stop numbering these? Does this matter to you that I'm numbering them, or should we just do Real Talk for Lightworkers this week? I don't know. You let me know what you think is better. Because I definitely lose track of the numbers and get very confused very often. So if that's not something that matters to you, the numbers, I can probably take them away. Anyways, so in today's episode, we're going to talk about self-forgiveness and why self-forgiveness is oftentimes one of the hardest things you will ever do, and why it's one of the most important things you will ever do. All right, so if you have not watched my videos on Stop Trying to Forgive and on how to love the parts of yourself you hate the most, I would highly recommend that you do that, and I put the links down below because they will kind of set the foundation for what I'm going to talk about today. All right, so I want to start this video with a personal story, actually, because I feel like this will make things feel so much more personable and doable, and less like a lesson and more like a reasonable human thing that we're all going through. All right, so the last 2 months of my life have been totally insane. And so what we did was we were living in Asia for an entire year, and then we went back to Canada to have a wedding ceremony for my family and my husband's family, and essentially to just give them that thing, right? And so and there were a couple of other sort of very codependent reasons why I agreed to go back over to the Western world when I really didn't want to. Okay, so this is like where it all kind of starts, right? I knew in my heart and in my mind and in my being, my body especially, that I didn't want to go, and that I wanted to stay over here, and I didn't want to have this big wedding thing. I didn't want to do the whole ceremony. I didn't want, and I know this sounds really like blah, 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 sad girl. You didn't want to have a wedding, poor you. But it just is where I am right now, right? So I knew I didn't want to go. And I knew that in a sense, not in a sense, I knew that the bigger picture of it was that I was abandoning myself, that I was pretending that I had values that I don't, that I was doing some things to make other people happy that were out of alignment with who I am as a person, and like I say, what I value and what I believe in. And I really wanted to be what people expected me to be just for once, I think was kind of what was going on there. And I didn't want to disappoint people, and I wanted to give everyone a beautiful thing that they could be happy about. And I thought, you know, what's the big deal? We can go back over there, do that, and then come right back to Asia, and we'll be fine. But like I say, knowing who I am now, and knowing what I value, and knowing kind of what I need even to like do the work that I do and to be the person that I am here on the planet, I knew that that whole trip and that 2 months that we were going to be over there were not in alignment with me, and it was me abandoning myself in many, many ways. And so I did it, right? We went, and it was probably, if I'm going to be honest, worse than I thought it was going to be. And it was harder than I thought it was going to be. And lots of things happened that were just hard and traumatic and unfun. So we got back to Asia, and there was this huge part of me that just felt so mad at myself, right? That not only did I drag myself through this, but I dragged my husband through this, I dragged my sister through this. There was so much in there where we all got discombobulated, we all got into situations that just felt horrible for everybody, and I was telling myself this story that it was all unnecessary, that I really didn't have to, I could have and I should have just said no. I could have and I should have just not gone. Like literally the week before we were set to fly out to Canada, we were walking through the streets of Georgetown, Penang, and I just burst into tears because I knew that what we were heading into was just going to be emotional turmoil, and it was going to be a lot of what I was considering at the time unnecessary pain and drama, and we didn't have to do it, and we shouldn't have done it, and I'm telling myself the story that I should have just called it off, that I should have just let everyone be disappointed and not gone and stayed in Asia and like ate the price of the flights and all this stuff. And so, but like I said, we went and my body flipped out, and I don't think I've ever felt so sick in the last 5 years than I did while we were there. Like I say, there was like a lot of just stuff that came up. And so by the time we got back here, I was just feeling like, man, you really fucked it up. Like, why did you do that? And you could have just easily said no, and what's wrong with you? And so for a couple of days, I was really holding on to this idea that I messed it up and that I caused Marcus a whole bunch of pain. I caused Sam a whole bunch of pain. No one enjoyed the wedding. Like, I'm going to be honest, nobody had a good time. I tried really hard to make it a nice thing, and I just couldn't. And because, yeah, like I say, it was out of alignment with me, and so I tried to do what was going to make everyone else happy, and it didn't work. That's another lesson for another video that I'm going to talk about, but essentially, right, I did all this stuff. We went down to Mexico. I didn't really want to be there. We went to San Francisco, and long story, but I get detained every time we go there because of, I don't have a criminal record or anything. I've never done anything illegal. It's not that. There's just like one little silly thing that happened 4 years ago that now they just have to put me in, I have to go through secondary security every time. And that just really messes with you to be kind of detained and treated like a prisoner, like you're doing something illegal when you're not. That is energetically really tough for me. And then just being over on that side of the world right now with everything that's going on, it's hard. It's really hard to be there, and I get overwhelmed. And so by the time we get back here, like I said, I was just like, man, you just what's wrong with you? Why couldn't you just say no? Why, I can't believe you're still abandoning yourself like this. You're a self-love teacher. What's wrong with you? All of these stories, holy crap, you're the worst. And I was trying to, in a way, to love myself through it. But there was this part of me that really didn't want to forgive me, okay? There was this part of me that wanted to stay mad at myself and wanted me to keep feeling horrible about what I was doing and keep saying, look, it's true. I should feel bad about this. Look at all this pain that I caused and how I could have avoided it and all these stories I was telling myself. And so I was just sitting with that part of me that didn't want to forgive me, right? That just wanted to be mad at me and just wanted to be throwing a pity party and you should have done something different and you could have done something different and all these stories that were going on. And I sat with her and this part of myself, and I was just like, okay, so what's going on here? What, you don't have to forgive me, okay? If you want to be mad at me forever for this, if you never want to let this go, that's fine. I guess I'll just regret it for the rest of my life. But what can I do for you? What are you trying to say? What are you trying to do? And basically the message that I got was, the reason I didn't want to forgive myself, okay? The big reason why I was saying I'm not going to ever let myself be okay with this. I'm not ever going to let myself tell myself I learned something or that there was a purpose in it or that it couldn't have been avoided or any of these things, was because I wanted to protect myself from anything like that ever happening again. Right? The reason I didn't want to forgive myself was because there was a part of me that truly believed that if I just held on to it enough, that if I just beat myself up about it enough, that if I just didn't forgive myself enough, that I'd never abandon myself again. And that was going to be my tool for staying in alignment, right? Beating myself up about this thing that I did where I went way out of alignment with myself was going to be my ticket to never going out of alignment with myself again. You see that logic? And you see that reasoning? And I think, I'm pretty sure that I'm probably not the only person that holds on to that self-judgment and that self-hate and that you could have done something different and what the heck is wrong with you and that spinning in your head of all the things you could have done and you should have done and you wish you had said and you wish you hadn't said and the things you wish you had done different and or et cetera, and we hold on to it. And we don't forgive ourselves. And we find that even forgiving other people for hurting us and for the things that other people have done to us is so much easier than forgiving ourselves. And especially when we feel like we've hurt other people in the process. You see what I'm saying here? That there are especially times where we feel like we did something that was out of alignment with us and it hurt others. And we feel like there's no way I'm going to forgive myself for that because then I'm going to do it again. That's really the root fear. The root fear is, if I forgive myself, I'm letting myself off the hook, and then I'm just going to keep doing what I've done. So what I've discovered is this. That is actually the exact opposite of the truth. The real truth is, so long as I was holding on to that idea that I was wrong and I shouldn't have done it and I made a huge mistake and I need to feel shitty about it, what that actually did was lowered my self-esteem, lowered my self-worth, lowered my capacity to love myself, to accept myself, to honor myself, and it actually made me more vulnerable to abandoning myself in the future and repeating the situation, repeating the circumstance. It's literally like the exact thing I was doing to try to prevent my abandoning myself again in the future was going to cause me to abandon myself again in the future. That's exactly how this works, all right? Every single time we use fear as a method of coping with something that happened that we think should not have happened, we set ourselves up to experience it again. And now, why would we do that? Why is that how it works? Because the situation in and of itself was there to spark growth in us, in me. So going back to Canada, getting married for my parents and Marcus's parents, and doing all the things that we did, it was not a mistake. It was painful and it was hard, and that's the first thing I needed to learn, right? And that's the other video that I'll put the link down below. That pain is a part of this. That pain wasn't wrong. It was there as a teacher for me, and I needed to go through it, because if I truly didn't need to go through it, I would have had the strength in Malaysia to call it off, but I didn't. That's the thing. Hindsight doesn't count. Now I would call it off, but I didn't have then what I have now. All right? So that's the first thing. When we judge a painful situation as wrong and bad, we literally doom ourselves to repeat it over and over and over again because it was there to stimulate growth in us. So the second thing, as I started to say, okay, it's okay. It wasn't a mistake. I couldn't have done anything different. I want to believe that I could have been a different person, but the truth is I couldn't. Otherwise I would have. So what was there to learn? What was I growing into? What was the actual lesson involved in this whole thing that I did? And I'll tell you, like, for instance, some of the things that I learned out of this was, number one, if someone is asking you to abdicate who you are, who you truly know yourself to be, in order to make them happy, it won't make them happy. And that's what I've learned, okay? That's a huge, big, codependent part of me that has been fully brought into the light here, which is that I've still held on to this idea that I can abandon myself enough to make someone else who is unhappy happy, and that is kind of worth it sometimes. But the truth is, anytime I've ever had to abandon myself to make someone else happy, it never made them happy anyways. We can't make someone who is unhappy happy by abandoning ourselves. And that is a huge lesson that I've learned that I needed to learn. I really needed to see it full on, that I did exactly everything I could possibly do to make that wedding a special time for everyone involved, and basically no one had a good time. And it's not because I didn't do a good job. It's really because it was impossible, okay? So that's one of the first lessons that I learned. And then the second lesson that I learned is really this, that self-forgiveness is the key to not abandoning yourself. You have to love yourself, and you have to be able to say, right, because the second reason that we abandon ourselves, the second reason that we do things that are out of alignment with who we are, is because we think it's going to make other people love us. And the only reason that we really feel like we have to reject ourselves in order to get love from someone else is because we don't feel like that love that we want from someone else is accessible from within, right? We really don't feel like we can love ourselves enough, that the need to be somebody different for someone else to love us isn't there anymore. And that's a huge thing that I'm still learning, right? I'm still learning how to be fully myself and give myself that love, even if it disappoints other people. Now, this is not to say that I outright hurt other people, that I outright abandon other people, that I outright do things to screw other people over. Never. Because really, I don't believe that that's an authentic thing. To be honest with you, I never authentically want to hurt somebody. I never authentically want to let somebody down. I never authentically want someone else to be in pain so that I can have pleasure. And I've never seen it work that way. It always seems to be that when I'm truly being authentic with myself, sometimes I let people down in a way that's good for their growth, right? I don't coddle them in a way that they need to learn how to love themselves. I'm not there for every email, because sometimes people need to learn that self-reliance, that it's not about how available I am, right? But so what I'm saying is, I've found, and I truly have proven this to myself, that what is best for me is what's best for everybody else. There are going to be times where it's no sweat off my back to go and do something for someone else. Often, it's no sweat off my back to go and do something for someone else. And that's an authentic expression. I didn't have to get rid of any aspect of myself. I didn't have to abandon myself. I didn't have to make myself less happy in order to do that for them. It made me happy to do it for them. And that happens often. But then there are other times where I feel icky about doing something that someone else wants me to do, and it doesn't feel right to me with regards to who I know myself to be, and I do it, and then both of us feel like shit. That's usually what happens. Or this other person just feels placated and numb, but right, like in the Lightworkers video, when we're just protecting them from having to look at their own stuff. And that's not actually doing them a favor, right? So it becomes this kind of like rather sticky web that we do have to go through. But anyways, the whole point of this is learning to forgive myself and to love myself made it so that I could learn what I needed to learn from that thing. And it made it so that I could grow and expand. And that is actually, in, the paradoxical way, the thing that's going to prevent me from doing it again in the future. Right? Because I learned what I needed to learn, and now I understand something that I did not understand before. I see something in a way that I didn't see it before, and I had to go through that experience and then fully allow myself to say, okay, that wasn't wrong. What was that? That wasn't bad. That wasn't something that should not have happened. That was something that should have happened because it did. Now, what was it there to teach me? I know something about myself and about the reality now that I didn't know before. I had a theory, you shouldn't abandon yourself for other people, but I didn't really know why. And now I know why. I get that because I went through it. You see what I'm saying here? So I'm far less likely to do it again in the future because I actually see the benefit that I thought was going to happen. If I abandon myself, this person will be happy. That doesn't happen. That was an illusion. That was a story I was telling myself that doesn't align with reality. But by going through this reality and going through that painful experience, I saw that's how it works. When I'm in alignment with myself, everything that I want to do does help other people. And that's really, truly how it is. And I don't believe that anyone else is not like that. And you're not an evil person. There's nothing wrong with you. You also, when you are in alignment with yourself, you will make other people uncomfortable. Sometimes. You're not going to be able to do everything for them that they want you to do, but that, again, is growth for them that they can choose or not choose. But when you abandon yourself, you're not helping them or you. And that's a huge, major lesson. So when we're not forgiving ourselves, the reason we're not forgiving ourselves is because we think we caused a painful situation that didn't have to happen. And the truth is that painful situation did have to happen. It has a lesson for you, and it's growth. Okay? It was not a mistake. Whatever you did wasn't a mistake. But you're never going to learn from it if you keep judging it as wrong, and if you keep judging yourself as wrong for doing it. So you need to forgive yourself for doing it in order to actually learn from it. And that will make it so that you don't do it again in the future. You're not going to protect yourself from doing something that you think you did wrong again in the future by holding on to how stupid you think you are for doing it. That is going to make you do it over and over and over again because you didn't learn. You won't have any reason to not do it again, right? You haven't figured out why you did it yet. That's really the cause, right? If you're saying that was wrong, bad, and I shouldn't have done it, you don't know why you did it. And therefore, you're going to do it again because you have no reason not to, okay? So that's my video on self-forgiveness and why it is so important, because it is growth. And if you're still mad at yourself, you don't understand why you did it, and then you don't understand how to not do it again, okay? So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Join Patreon